Hi, everybody. Welcome to our next presentation. This presentation, we are going to be going over an essay that's actually in your book. It's in chapter 7. And what you should have done already is you should have read this essay already. And you should have already annotated for inference. And now I'm going to go over all of the inference in this essay. And so you can revise your annotations. Please use a different color so you can tell the difference between your annotations and what I'm telling you, okay? This isn't going to be handed in, but this is going to aid you in knowing what to do when you have a test for this, okay? So you're going to be using your book, and it is the green, and I know the sun is really bright right now, so I'm trying to get out of the sun, but it's Early Autumn by Langston Hughes, and I'll show you that, but I first of all need to get onto my document camera. So let me try that. I think it's on, and it's not at all ready, so it's gonna look funny, but that's okay. So here we go. There we go. Oh, there it is, Early Autumn. All right, so you can see here that it is on page 297. 297, and this is the essay that we're gonna go through, and I'm gonna annotate. Now, of course, I don't like to write in my book because then my book is written in, and then I can't do this for my next class, right? Because it will all be written in. So I have typed it up, and I have it right here, Early Autumn by Langston Hughes, and I'm just gonna kind of move that so I can be better on the table. Okay, so I typed it up. It's also in the folder right near this presentation. So if you don't want to write in your book either, you can absolutely print this out and do it that way. However, you should have already done this. So if you haven't done it, stop the video, go back and do it yourself. You will learn more if you try it and then you hear what I have to say. Okay, so make sure that you have it done first. And here we go. Early Autumn is an essay by Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is one of my favorite essayists. He's also a poet. He lived during the Harlem Renaissance, during the civil rights movement, a little bit before that. Notice how he died in 1967, and so that is still kind of during the civil rights era, but he was definitely alive and part of that Harlem Renaissance during that time. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start reading, and I'm actually going to move this a little bit because there's a crack at the table there that will be hard to write on. Okay, there we go. All right. So when Bill was very young, they had been in love. Can you see this, or is the sun really awful? Try this. Is that better? That might be better. Okay, I'm going to try it again. Ready? When Bill was very young, they had been in love. Many nights they had spent walking, talking together. Then something not very important had come between them, and they didn't speak. All right, so here is the first two sentences. Well, I'll just keep going. Impulsively, she married a man she thought she loved. Bill went away, bitter about women. Okay, so the first thing we know, right, is we know that Bill was young, and that there's two of them, right? They had been in love. And then it sounds like this part is important, that something not very important had come between them, and they didn't speak. So this just, I think I have an inference here that isn't stated, but I think that it happens in couples a lot, is that they let something little blow up into be something big. And that's what, something not very important had come between them and they didn't speak. Now, this happens all the time, right? My husband can do something tiny and it depends on the day. But especially if I'm already in a crabby mood and he does something, then I am mad about it. But they didn't speak. So this tells me that they're both stubborn, right? They're both stubborn. And this is not good because, like, my husband and I can be irritated with each other. And we know we're irritated with each other. Like, he knows when I'm irritated with him. I definitely know when he's irritated with me. But we sort of go about our business like we're not irritated. Does that make sense? We just keep moving on and we don't not talk. So this just tells me that they're really stubborn, and that's not good because that means that they think the other person's wrong and they're waiting, right, for them to do something. This word is really important. Impulsively. Impulsively means that it's done without thinking. I did the W out without. I hope that's okay with you. I think you can handle it without thinking. Done without thinking. So this impulsivity is important because impulsively she married a man she thought she loved. So did she love him? No, she didn't love him. Okay? So she didn't love him. She married him anyway without thinking about it. And then Bill was bitter about women, right? And that just means that he was really mad. Oops. And because he has all that emotion, I think he still loved her. When this happened. And you know what happens when you have a lot of passionate feelings for somebody? That love can turn to hate really fast because you have so many emotions about it. So that's why I think he went away bitter about women. It's because he loved her and then she went and got married and then he was really mad about that and probably that love turned to hate a little bit, right? Okay, and then we go to paragraph 2. And it says, yesterday, walking across Washington Square, she saw him for the first time in years. Bill Walker, she said. He stopped. At first, he did not recognize her. To him, she looked so old. Mary, where'd you come from? Unconsciously, she lifted her face as though wanting a kiss. But he held out his hand. She took it. I live in New York now, she said. Oh, smiling politely. Then a little frown came quickly between his eyes. I always wondered what happened to you, Bill. I'm a lawyer, nice firm, way downtown. Married yet? Sure, 2 kids. Oh, she said. Okay. So here we are. This is the first time in years. So they haven't seen each other for a long time. And she sees him and he does not recognize her. So this tells me I'm sorry. I'll try and write normally here. He forgot about her a little bit. Maybe. And this whole thing about looking so old is interesting. So I'm just going to leave that underlined because I don't know, that might mean something later. Unconsciously, she lifted her face as though wanting a kiss. So she still feels close to him, right? Because you wouldn't do that like to a stranger. I wouldn't like meet you and, oh, hi, my name's Meg, and I would not expect any stranger to like kiss my cheek or anything like that. So she must have still felt pretty close to him if she lifted her face to him, right? And then he held out his hand, so he didn't want to kiss her. And do you see how this is all inference, that I am totally just writing down what is not stated, right? From this sentence, unconsciously she lifted her face as though wanting a kiss, but he held out his hand. We know that there's a contrast here, right? She's feeling really close to him. He doesn't want to kiss her. And so the closeness is gone, right? And Langston Hughes didn't have to explain that to us. He just had to let us picture this one moment. And that's what inference is that we go through and we fill in the blanks because there are clues here. And then our background knowledge about what it's like to see somebody you used to love. I mean, even if you've never been in love, you've seen movies where people have fallen in love and this has happened. So we have a story in our head, a background knowledge of what this might be like. And so we're filling in those gaps here, filling in those blanks. All right, so she lives in New York now, and this is important. Oh, smiling politely. So does that mean that's a genuine smile if he's smiling politely? Of course not. You only smile politely when you don't mean it, right? Not genuine. So he doesn't want to smile. And then a little frown came quickly between his eyes. So these two things, just his facial expression here, after she tells him that she lives in New York, this tells me in an inference that Bill is not happy that Mary lives in New York now, right? He doesn't want her to live there. He's not happy. And then she's like, I've always wondered what happened to you, Bill. Right? So this goes back to how she still feels close to him, and she still, she still thinks of him as somebody special, right? So she still thinks about him. And then he just tells her what's up, right? And then he tells her that he has 2 kids, and instead of saying anything really positive, she just says, "Oh," right? So this makes me think that she's disappointed, that he's married and has kids. All right, so now we have a weird little thing that happens. And this little thing is kind of pulls out from Bill and Mary. And it just says, a great many people went past them through the park. people they didn't know. It was late afternoon, nearly sunset, cold. So I'm just going to put a big rectangle here, and we're going to come back to that, okay? We're going to talk about that later. And your husband, he asked her. We have 3 children. I work in the bursar's office at Columbia. You're looking very, he wanted to say old. Well, he said. And I'm just gonna. She understood. Under the trees in Washington Square, she found herself desperately reaching into the past. She had been older than he in Ohio. Now she was not young at all. Bill was still young. Okay. So this is still just polite conversation, but we have this thing that's happening throughout this essay where it starts out that Bill was very young, right? And then she looked old. He wanted to say old. She was not young at all. Bill was still young. So I'm not sure. I'm just keeping track of that because I think maybe this age thing is more than just their actual literal age, because they keep Langston Hughes keeps bringing it up. So I'm going to pay attention to that because he wanted to say old. So she's looking old. I don't know. Let's just keep our brains on that, okay? We live in Central Park West, she said. Come and see us sometime. Sure, he replied. You and your husband must have dinner with my family some night. Any night. Lucille and I'd love to have you. So this is all just sort of, I don't know, polite conversation, I guess. Do you think he really wants to have her over? I don't think so. I think this is polite conversation. And here's this other weird part here. The leaves fell slowly from the trees in the square, fell without wind, autumn dusk. She felt a little sick. So she felt a little sick. Why would she feel a little sick? Is it because of the polite conversation? No depth of conversation? And that he was talking about his wife, right? Lucille and I'd love to have you. That's really personal. She hasn't been very personal, right? So it's sort of this like arm's length conversation. We'd love it, she answered. You ought to see my kids, he grinned. So this tells me that Bill is proud of his kids. You know, he loves them. Okay, so there's that. Suddenly the lights came up on the whole length of Fifth Avenue, chains of misty brilliance in the blue air. Just box that. That's another one of those weird lines. There's my bus, she said. He held out his hand. Goodbye. When, she wanted to say, but the bus was ready to pull off. The lights on the avenue blurred, twinkled, blurred, and she was afraid to open her mouth as she entered the bus. afraid it would be impossible to utter a word. Suddenly, she shrieked very loudly, "Goodbye!" But the bus door had closed. All right, so all of a sudden she has to leave in a hurry, right? Because her bus is there. And then he's just like, "See ya, bye." And then she can't talk because she's afraid it would be impossible to utter a word. And there's this clue here. The lights on the avenue blurred, twinkled, blurred. So think about in your head, when do things look blurry? And when can you not speak? What is happening to her? She's crying. She's getting all verklempt. Her eyes are tearing up. She can't talk because she doesn't want to start bawling, right? And then all of a sudden she was like, "Oh my gosh," and she got her voice and she yelled goodbye, but the bus had closed, so it was too late. Right? Too late. The bus started. People came between them, outside. People crossing the street. People they didn't know. Space and people. So again, this part right here. She lost sight of Bill. Then she remembered she had forgotten to give him her address, or ask him for his, or tell him that her youngest boy was named Bill, too. So what do we know about Mary? She's still in love with Bill, isn't she? She probably had this great big fantasy that she'd run into him and they'd both still be in love, right? And that didn't happen, right? Because he didn't have any feelings for her anymore. He went away bitter about women. He was mad, and then he didn't like her anymore. He got married. He has kids. He loves his wife and he's proud of his children. It's over, Mary. Sorry about that. All right, so now let's go back to these weird places, and I'm going to see if I'm going to fold the papers so I can see if I can get them on one, so you can see them all at once. That was a bad fold. I'm doing the best I can here. Okay, so there's this and this, right? And we can almost get them, but not quite. So here's 3 of them. First it says, a great many people went past them through the park. People they didn't know. It was late afternoon, nearly sunset, cold. And then we have, the leaves fell slowly from the trees in the square, fell without wind, autumn, dusk. And then we have, suddenly the lights came up on the whole length of Fifth Avenue, chains of misty brilliance in the blue air. And then down here it says, people came between them, outside, people crossing the street, people they didn't know, space and people. All right, so we know what happens in this story. We know it's about Bill and Mary. Why did Langston Hughes decide to name this essay Early Autumn? This is about autumn because he does put these weird things in here. He talks about how the leaves are falling. and autumn dusk, and that it's blue air, it's cold out, right? And it's sunset. The day is ending, and what kind of season is autumn? When you think about autumn, what happens in the autumn? Why do the leaves fall off the trees? What happens with all of the plants? They all die, right? They all die. So we have Mary who's kept this fantasy in her head about getting back together with Bill. And then she sees Bill and she realizes that he doesn't love her. He doesn't really want anything to do with her. And so what happens to their relationship? It dies, right? So this whole thing about autumn and that being the season when things die, that is all symbolism here. And all these, people went past them and through the park they didn't know, right? It was late afternoon, the day's ending, nearly sunset, it's cold out, and there's all these people in between them, right? And then the leaves are falling, and it's autumn, and it's dusk now, so the sunset, and then the lights are coming up, and it's cold out, and then people came between them, people they didn't know, space and people. And yeah, this is over. She's probably never going to see him again. And he doesn't want to see her. All right. So we had a lot of inference here going on. We had to look at this really carefully in order to figure out what was really happening here between Mary and Bill. And Langston Hughes did a fabulous job. He was a master at giving us really, really good clues and good textual evidence to fill in the gaps so we could know what was happening without him telling us specifically. And that's why this is such a wonderful essay. It is such a good essay. And by the end, I'm sure when you read this before we did it, when you got to the part where it said her youngest boy was named Bill too, I bet you all went, oh my gosh, she loves him. Doesn't say that anywhere. But she did. There was enough clues, right? This whole kissing thing up here. This he's a brilliant writer. So that's that. I hope that was helpful. You will be asked to do some of that deciphering in an essay on the test. So I hope that that's helpful. I'm going to come back on here. Hello. Oh, there's the sun again. Hi there. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If you need some more practice with this, I do have another essay. I'm not going to post it unless you ask me to, and then I will give it to you. It's another Langston Hughes essay, but I've never done it before, so, I always have a bunch of stuff that we can do that with. All right, so that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed going through it with you, and have a lovely, lovely day.